Welcome to Impact and Influence, the podcast for current and emerging leaders to build on leadership capability, sustainability, and purpose. This series opens the door to what's possible to build a life in leadership by design, not by default. Impact and Influence is proudly brought to you by Flick It Over, an industry-leading forms provider and e-signature platform built for real estate. Flick It Over is an office-wide solution for sales, property management and operations that delivers noticeable efficiency and a seamless client signing experience via email and SMS. Unleash the power of SMS and get documents back 60% faster with Flick It Over. Welcome back to another Impact and Influence. Incredibly excited today and blessed to have young Ethan He with us from Clayton in Melbourne. Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Hello. How are you, Carly?
I'm awesome. Off the back of a long weekend. We're well rested. Knowing you probably worked though, Ethan, did you?
Yes, I did.
Any listings or sales over the weekend?
I listed 4 properties, sold 3 properties.
Of course you did.
Over the weekend, yeah.
Of course you did. And we're already picking up the theme. I can't wait to share your story and journey, Ethan. And probably for a lot listening and watching today, they might recognise you. You just spoke as a keynote at AREC.
Yes, I did.
How was that experience?
That was amazing. I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Now, someone said that there was almost 5,000 people there this year. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
I think it was one of their biggest. I was talking to John about it actually, and he said when the market sort of turns and recalibrates a little bit, you know, people look towards those types of events and conferences. And obviously, it's our landmark event in Australasia for salespeople. And I think just coming and being able to collaborate and network and listen to people like yourself about their stories is absolutely incredible. How long was your prep? Did you prep much going into AREC?
I did. Actually, I spent good 2 months to prepare my script. And as you know, English is my first language, so I have to spend a lot of time to write my script and try to say something right in front of 5,000 people.
I think you say a lot right, and that's a big theme coming in today that I want our listeners to take away from you is in the short period of time that we've known each other in 12 months is your commitment to your craft and what you're prepared to invest and put in, and you're always learning. So we're going to focus on that a lot today, but paint us a picture, Ethan. Tell us a little bit about the market in which you operate and what your business looks like.
My core market was a very competitive market. We're holding the number 1 market share in our core market, but I don't see that's a finish line. That's just a foundation for us to start with. I think the current market, you know, the seller expectation change, buyers expectation change, but I can see that's the best market for us to grow the market share to recruit the talents in the current market condition.
And Ethan, when you say you're number 1 in the current market, you've only been in the game for a really short period of time, so just over 12 years. How long have you and Jason had the business there in Clayton?
We started in 2017.
And what have you seen change the most in that period of time?
From 2017 now, the rental market actually changed a lot in my core market. The rental income increased by 30 to 40%, almost close to
extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
Has that changed the demographic of your suburb?
No, it didn't. I will have a lot of migrants, overseas students in my core market.
And what's been happening with the prices? So when you first opened the business there to now, how much are house prices up?
Interestingly, the townhouse units price increased by about 20%. But for the houses, because we have a lot of development sites in this area, the price actually didn't change much in the last 10 years' time.
So is it an affordable area? So for those of you that don't know, that are listening, that doesn't know where Clayton is, what are you sort of seeing for units and what are we looking at for houses?
The unit price probably between $800,000 to $1 million. The house average price between 1.1 up to $1.5 million.
Okay. And Ethan, could you tell us a little bit about your business? So sort of the head count, how many people, and then what sort of sales you've done in the last 12 months and how many managements you've got?
Yeah, my business have about 40 team members. We have 1,500 property management right now. In terms of the sales, I think we're on track of $3.3 million GCI for the financial year.
So extraordinary business in a short period of time. What does your role look like and what does your day-to-day look like?
I'm a selling principal, so I spend a lot of time selling properties, listing properties, negotiating deals, working with clients. That's keep me connected with my teams, what they experience every day in the current market.
So, Ethan, it's really interesting. When I come down to your office, you are so present in around your numbers and the property management side of the business as well. So it's quite unusual if I'll come down and you're sitting with us for the whole day when we go through property management and business performance. How important is it for a business owner in real estate to be present in that side of the business as well? And why do you do it?
Well, it's a very expensive investment we have made, right? So my role, I didn't grow my role organically. I acquired another company. So I have, in order to make sure the business is on track, I have to be heavily involved, especially my background as a sales agent. I don't have much experience of property management. So I want to learn that business. And also, when I'm managing the team, I have to make sure I have the right knowledge to support the team as well.
And we know that for sales, being incredibly accountable, having good structure and process and consistency is fundamental. How do you instill that with your sales team as you grow it?
Sorry, can you say it again, Connie?
How do you instill the discipline and the consistencies that you have as an agent across your team now that you're growing?
Okay, so I'm not a strong believer of micromanagement. I lead by example. So if I want to have a culture, have positive energy, everyone to support each other, I would make sure I bring that energy into the business. That can set a standard to the team. Because people can easily influence by the people surround them and the environment they're at. What
do you do if the energy's down? How do you lift the energy or what's your pulse check? How do you check in on it?
I always talk to my mentor. Right, I've got Tom Panos as my mentor. I've got John McGrath as well. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I try to find the solution where people have the similar problem, right? So, yeah. And
so that relatability.
Yes, and also I work out. Yeah, sometimes I feel my energy is down. I just jump into the gym, have a workout, and you come out with a different person.
How do you manage people that aren't performing in your team? How do you approach that don't work at your level?
Look, that's one of my challenges as well. As a business owner, I have a very high standard, but also I want to have a stable team. Sometimes, I have team members can't really catch up with the pace, with the business. So I think what I learned from the journey is I have to understand what's the reason.
So how important is it to understand the purpose and the why of your people in driving performance?
Yes, it's very, very important because I have to find out the reason why they're not performing well. What's the reason are holding back, for their numbers. Once I understand that, I can provide solution to them.
So finding out what the blockage is and then spending time with them to unblock it isn't always easy when you're the sales agent, the capacity that you're at. You've recently just put on a sales manager. What was the tipping point for you in that, and what advice would you have to anybody else listening?
I feel like, as a high performance agent, I'll probably not be the best trainer. Sometimes I do things, I have to rush into things, appointment. I don't have enough time to spend with the team. So that's why I have Robert Chinkana just joined my team. So he's very, very experienced in terms of the team management, managing the KPI, but also more importantly, he can find out the solution for those team members who are looking to grow.
I think the sales manager's role is the hardest role to often find or look for employees in that role. What things were you looking for, and what advice would you give to other business owners listening when they're looking for a sales manager?
I think first they probably have to understand the industry. This industry, the people-driven business, is not about all the KPI. Right. Like my sales manager, Rob, he doesn't measure about how many calls you make, how many door knocks you make. He will make sure what information you're going to bring to the client. Before you're making phone calls, who are you calling? Why you're calling the client? Instead of just purely measure everything by KPI. I'll probably will say we value quality over quantity.
Yeah. What's the intent and what's the outcome you want of the call is incredibly important. What metric tells you more about your business in sales or PM that's more important than others?
What metrics? I think market share is the metrics we're using to measure our business. We don't looking for short-term profit because we're still at the growth phase of the business. But by saying it's not like we don't look at the cash flow. The cash flow is also very important, which means it will keep the business sustainable.
Yeah. So you've obviously got a very large sales business there and growing into new markets, and you came in as a new entrant and you've taken market share and you're number one. What's been the most impactful initiative that you've done with respect to marketing or your business to grow market share?
I think social media is a big strategy. Also building raving fans to maintain high standards, because today's customers, they don't remember every service. We have to stand out from our competitors. The way how we deal with the client. Like I always tell my team, hey, if you can't service your current client, don't bring in new business, because they're going to leverage your bad reputation, right? You want to make sure every client is get the best possible service. Then they can become your referral to bring more clients to the business.
For you guys, Ethan, how do you measure client satisfaction? What does that look like in your business?
We always have a survey after the property is sold. We're going to ask the client, how did you find us? What's your experience with us? Is anywhere we can improve? Then we go back to the agent. Hey, this is a general feedback, and then we take customers' feedback on board.
So, Ethan, I know that we've been starting to dip the toe in the water with your property management business around client experience, and we're in the very, very early days of that, but you definitely have an appetite to lean more into that like sales. Why do you think we focus on that more in sales first than we do in property management?
Maybe because I'm a sales agent. Then now I'm going to implement this on property management as well. So, as a new business, right, we always want to get the whole idea happening overnight. But I guess it's going to take time to implement things into the business too.
Well, you lean into what you know, right? And I think sales is cash flow because property management, is your asset. I guess the question there that I was really curious about is how do we get sales principals? You are very present in your property management business, but how do we get sales agents who are principals to be more present and pay more attention to their property management department? What advice would you give there?
Look, I see property management as even more important than sales. Right, because like we've got 1,500 landlords there sitting on our database, which is we're not really actually spend enough time to service them, and we're looking for a new clients into the business, looking to grow the market share. That just conflicts. So like by now having the business more than 6 or 7 years now, and I'm actively looking to expand my business. My point of view, I think we have to look at the rental business or property management business even more important than the sales business.
And I think, Ethan, it's something, and again, credit to you, is the time you've allowed us to spend into the business. There's just opportunities everywhere. And I think with property management, the numbers probably tell you more about the opportunities and what that looks like in your business and what levers to pull. So, for example, this is certainly not your business, but I'm stepping into so many businesses at the moment, and we look at lost managements that go and sell with other agents, and the leakage with that with respect to GCI that's working out the business. What's your process that you have in the business, or what do you have to try and stop that leakage? So, what's the relationship between sales and property management with servicing those clients?
Yeah. So every time we lose a business, we always want to find out why. Is maybe we not actively calling our landlords enough, right? Or maybe we lost a listing because of the fees, commission, miscommunication. There's always something we can learn from the process.
So talk about learning. What's been your biggest learning in business ownership in real estate?
I think my biggest learning is get rid of the excuses. So stop focusing on what I can't do, start to focus on what it takes to get to the next level.
What are you most proud of building?
as in people. The team I have right now, I'm very grateful having the right people in the business right now. It takes a lot of time and effort to create that team, but also sometimes, just like mentioned before, real estate is will have challenge every day, right? Sometimes you have to make tough decisions to let people go to maintain the high standards of the current culture.
Do you think of as an industry that we hold on to people for too long before we make a tough decision about who stays and who goes?
It's always a tough decision. It's like sometimes, should we, like, it's sometimes a fear in my mind as well. I want to keep the high standards, but I don't want to compromise the standards as well at the same time. But yeah, so I guess the other day I asked you the same question, Kylie, right? What should I do? Right. But I guess I will get better and better when I have bigger team.
And I think too, let's talk about vulnerability and fears at the moment, because we all have it. And I just love your appetite for always being willing to get better and curiosity. But if you don't mind, Ethan, could we ask you to share a vulnerability or a fear that you've had in leadership and that you've had to overcome and what you learned from it?
Yeah. So I guess like the situation discussed before, I have high expectations, but also I want to have a stable team. My fear is losing people in my business, by compromising my standard. But also what I realize now, actually good people are attracted by high standards because they want to grow in a right environment, which they can thrive. So sometimes we just need to make sure we make tough decisions in order to build a long-term business.
I think it's so true. You've brought two things to the forefront, and it's actually really interesting. I don't know if you've even realised you've done it, Ethan, with that leadership program that we did last year. You've almost verbatim repeated some of the frameworks that we did around understanding someone's purpose, then creating the habits and rituals with the disciplines and structures to get their permission to hold them to account, to build the momentum. And you're exactly right, is if people are attracted to high performance businesses, they want process. They want to know what they've got to do, and they want to know what's expected of them. And if you can lead with energy and vulnerability on that, you'll build an unbreakable business, which is what you're currently doing. What didn't you get right, Ethan, that we can learn from?
What I did get right is early on, like I say, I focused a lot of excuses. I focused on the things I cannot control, rather than find a solution. So now my mindset actually shift. Every time I look at a problem, I say, yes, problem going to happen anyway, right? Whether it's going to happen in my business, whether it happens in my life, that's something I cannot change. But what I can do is find solutions to those problems.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Spheres of control. We worry about so many things that we just cannot control. RBA is going to put up interest rates. We can't control that. Can we influence it? No, we can't. But looking at radical ownership of self, what can we control? What can we influence? And then the outermost circle, what we absolutely cannot control. It's a good bucket list every day, right? So rather than creating a to-do list, is drawing your 3 circles: what you can control, what you can influence, and what you can't control. And working on that in leadership is a great tip. Who do you look to when you need to raise your game? And what is it about them that keeps you coming back for more?
I think John McGrath. I've been mentoring by John McGrath in the last 12 months. I actually learned so much. Sometimes, I drop my game, and sometimes I feel a bit down. I always remember what he told me is what brings me today or what get me to the next level. So which means every day I have to stay humble, have to stay hungry. That so much more I can learn.
So it's what can we learn every day to get better and better?
Well, every day
staying hungry and humble and staying authentic and true to ourselves. How do you scale that, right? So how do you instill that in the leaders that you recruit into your business?
I guess I have to make sure they share the same value and the standard we have in the business.
What sort of questions do you ask in an interview about that? So like recently you've brought Rob in, You've got Leah in as your general manager, you've got Jacina as your head of property management. What are the sort of questions you would ask in an interview to try and find that out?
Well, I'll use Robbie as an example because Robbie is very experienced. He was my sales manager when I joined the industry. So I think we sort of like, I'll go through the scenario with him. For example, if we have, underperformed team members, how would you deal with in that scenario? Right? We want to sort of suss out, are you going to be a super firm? Are you going to be like work out the scenario? How are you going to support the people? I think that's kind of like case study or that situation while asking what I will ask them in the interview.
I think it's good, Ethan. We do so many things in a lounge room sitting there when we're talking to a vendor around case studies, and we don't bring it into other areas of management or leadership. So that's a great tip. If you could shift one thing about the industry or how we operate, what would it be?
I think we should value quality over quantity. Sometimes we're chasing the results tomorrow. Right, we want to make 100 phone calls, or we want to do 100 dollars because we want to get 100 listings. But if I can change that, I think we should measure the business based on how much time we invest in ourselves to learn the product knowledge, to sharpen our skill, rather than just measure everything based on cold calling or numbers of the phone call, numbers of the door we knock.
It's really interesting you say that, because I say this to working parents all the time. It's not the quantity of the time you spend with your kids and at home, it's the quality. If you don't mind sharing, what does your home life look like, and how do you juggle family and the growth of the business?
I think the family is very, very important. Without a healthy family relationship, nothing's sustainable. That also allows me to bring the right energy into the business. I'm always book my holiday in advance to make sure, I spend enough time with family.
Ethan, it's something in our industry, and I was talking to a group of very, very inspiring young guys the other day. They're on a pathway to partnership, coming into business ownership, and the pressure that they feel with juggling being at home for, bath time, or spending enough time at home with their partner or kids and business ownership. How do you do that? What would be some of your secrets of the trade?
It just makes sure it's a non-negotiable in your diary. It's like listing presentations are non-negotiable. If I book in the auction, I have to turn up to the auction. The same as a family commitment. Right? If I make sure, I've taken my wife out for dinner, if I'm going on holiday, I will have to make sure it's happening. And once you put this in advance, put in your diary, everyone starts to look forward to the holidays.
I think it's what gives you joy, right, Ethan? So time's a choice, and how we spend our time is a direct reflection of what our priorities are in life. We say yes, we say no. So it's being non-negotiable around those times in your diary. And something you just said, I just want to really focus on it for our listeners, is if you don't make time for your people, then someone else will. That's your tribe at home too, right? So it's not just your team at work. So, and I think it's something we need to talk about more and more in the industry, because work gets so much of us, and then sometimes our loved ones at home gets what's left over. And that's not fair. So let's talk about speed and pace, because you operate at speed and at pace. I can remember, of course, I was doing it in Sydney last year, and you came up and we talked about how many auctions we had on a weekend, and we went around the room and we had to get you to repeat it twice. How many auctions are you guys sort of doing, and what does that look like in your business?
So obviously the market condition changed in the last 2 or 3 months' time. But last month we managed to sell 28 properties. So I think we booked about 40, close to 40 auctions for the whole office wise.
How important has auction been to you in growing market share?
It's very important because we like doing things transparently, right? Doing auctions, that's how we do a listing presentation in public, how we negotiate the deal in public. So I think it's very helpful, to grow the market share.
So incredibly true, and such a great controlled process. And look, I don't want to get into auction training, but I love the fact that the first thing you said was that it creates a transparent environment for everyone to see, what's going on. And there is a direct correlation between agents that own number one market share and what their practices are around auction. If someone's listening to this and they're like, auction won't work in my area, what would you say?
Look, I think it's a case by case. Look, it may not work in a certain area, right? At the end of the day, we want to have the transparent process to help the vendor get the best possible outcome. My 90% of the business is an auction business, but I still got a 10% of the business, like the listing, they're not suitable for an auction campaign. So, yeah.
Know your mark. What's your relationship like with technology and innovation in your business, Ethan?
It's positive. Well, I like the new technology, which is going to help us to delegate those administration work. But also, I understand this business is a people-driven business. Technology can never replace human connections. Because when people list the property with me, it's not because I have the best software in the company. It's because they trust me.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So true. Don't replace the connection.
Yeah.
Just increase the frequency with the technology. How do you protect your energy?
Working out, spending time with family, spend time with friends.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Much sort of time leave do you take a year?
How many times I take leaves?
Do you take holidays in a year?
Yeah, I'll take, not including the business trip, I take about 4 holidays. Every quarter, I'll go away for a short period, and no longer than 1 week. Sometimes it's slightly longer during Christmas time because, during Christmas and New Year, I'll probably go away for 2 or 3 weeks. But usually I'll make sure I have 1 week during every quarter to reset and refresh myself.
So incredibly important. What are you reading or listening to at the moment, Ethan, that's having an effect for you as a leader?
I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. I just started to listen to your podcast. I think that's very, very good. I listened to Tom Penner's $1 Million Agent. I think McGrath got a podcast as well.
You reading anything at the moment, or you're an avid reader, or do you prefer to listen?
I prefer listen. I'm not reading too much things.
I know we're not very good at it, us people with poor attention spans, are we? We prefer to listen as we go, but I think that's true about how your people best learn. So what have you found over your last 12 years and coaching and mentoring top performers? What have you found the best lessons are or the best practices when coaching and developing people when it comes to learning?
I think sometimes we're overcomplicating things. Just focus on the basics with consistency. That's very important, right? Sometimes in order to become successful, we don't need to have 50 different strategies. We just have to make sure those foundations are right.
What's been the biggest learning for you in leadership so far?
Biggest learning in my leadership is maintain the high standards, but not to compromise my standard.
If you had to go back and do your 12 years over again and tap a younger version of Ethan on the shoulder and give them some advice, what would it be?
I'll be like, Ethan, stop to finding those excuses. Keep finding solutions. That's advice I will give to myself.
What I love about you, Ethan, is let's not overcomplicate it. Let's keep it basic. Let's be a good human. Just get on with it. Stop making excuses. It's not that hard, guys. Incredible journey. For those of you that didn't hear Ethan at AREC, outstanding by all accounts. With respect to standing up in front of 5,000 people and giving your message, could you give us in a couple of minutes or less what were your key messages at AREC?
So my key messages, so I share the 5 foundations which took me from 0 to 200 sales a year. A couple of things important is product knowledge, right? Because I don't have the best script and polished dialogue for my listing presentation, but I bring a lot of facts. I have the right product knowledge, adding value to people's real estate journey. But also I keep going out from my comfort zone, right? Myself right now, I'm calling 250 auctions a year. So before I'd keep telling myself also like English is not my first language. I'm introverted, but I'm not very talkative, but until I think one of my friends and Harry Lee, he won the Australian Auctioneering Championship. He's overcomplicating things, right? Doing auction, just a listing presentation in public, and taking bids, just a negotiation between hot buyers face to face in public, right? Then at that time, I'll get rid of my excuses. I start calling auctions, and until now, 90% of my vendor list the property with me and trust me to call their auctions. The English is their first language. So at that time, my business become doubled. Also, another point is always thinking bigger than yourself. scaling the business, right? So when we're looking to scale the business, it's not from doing more by myself. We need to building people, building the team.
It's actually funny. John McGrath talks about that all the time, doesn't he? Think bigger. What would happen if? And it's a great way to stretch yourself. Ethan, I've taken a lot away from our conversation today, but the 6 things that resonate for me with your leadership style and where you are with high performance. Don't get comfortable. Always think bigger about change. Practice, practice, practice. Master your craft. No excuses. And we're nothing without our family or our good tribe around us. Ethan, it's been an honour and a privilege to get to know you a bit over the last sort of year and a half. You are the most humble human I think I've ever met. And I've met a lot of humble people in my time. You're curious, which is a great thing for a leader to be, but you want the best for everybody. Please keep doing what you are doing for our industry. And thank you so much for joining us today. We're incredibly grateful for your time.
Thank you, Kylie.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Impact and Influence. Click follow to get notified about future episodes. Leaving a review helps others find the podcast. And to learn more about our courses, our study tours, conferences, keynote topics and our services, or how simply we might be able to help support you in taking you to places you never thought possible, please visit regrowthkyliewalsh.com. Impact and Influence is proudly brought to you by Flick It Over, an industry-leading forms provider and e-signature platform built for real estate. Flick It Over is an office-wide solution for sales, property management and operations that delivers noticeable efficiency and a seamless client signing experience via email and SMS. Unleash the power of SMS and get documents back 60% faster with Flick It Over.